All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Sivam. My name is Sivam Velaidam, and thank you for watching. And then, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. This is a Voice of Men 360. Actually, it is part of IMD International Men's Day. Voice of Men 360 recently started, and it is based in Toronto. IMD has over 21 years of history, and then we are focusing on the well-being of boys and men. Let me go through the 6 pillars the IMD focuses. Number one is to promote positive male role models, not just movie stars and sportsmen, but everyday working classmen who are living decent, honest lives. To celebrate men's positive contributions to society, community, family, marriage, childcare, and the environment. To focus on men's health and well-being, social, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Fourth one, to highlight discrimination against men in areas of services, social attitudes, expectations, and law. Fifth one, to improve gender relations and promote gender equality. Number 6, to create a safer, better world where people can be safe and grow to reach their full potential. These are the 6 pillars we are working on that. So far 90 countries, nearly 90 countries taking initiatives or doing a number of activities on a regular basis. Today, we have a special guest. Of course, before I bring him in, I want to let you know about Voice Open Up. Open Up, it is a platform that anybody can come and talk or share their life stories, share their life journey. Any struggles, any overcomes, any challenges, life challenges, you can come and share. The reason is being, let's say if you have some challenges, life challenges, and then you come and share your life stories. Somebody else, whoever is listening on the other end, they can change their thinking pattern. They can change their lifestyle or the mindset actually. So it will help somebody somewhere, somehow. That's a bottom, the motive behind this Open Up Live Talk. Let's welcome Mr. Mark Dunn. He's a very good friend of mine, and then he's very enthusiastic person. So let's hear about Mark. Mark, let's start with your introduction. Let's give us what you're doing, what's your profession, and we'll go from there. Please.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here today. As you said, my name is Mark Dunn. I'm a self-awareness speaker, and I graduated from Carleton University with a sociology anthropology degree. And I worked in different professions as a teacher, mental health therapist, business development, as well as professional fundraising for nonprofits. And my goal and my intent is that I am sharing content to help develop each individual from within so that they can bring value to the world. What I've found over the years now is that a lot of people have lost track of who they are, and we need to reconnect to who you are from an authentic place while understanding your strengths, your skill set, the things that you have of value, and then being able to present that to the world so that you feel fulfilled. Today now with COVID-19 and this pandemic, it's done a great job of slowing us down and to not just self-isolate to protect us from getting sick or harming ourselves, but it's also self-isolate to develop ourselves and to get reconnected to who we are. And that's who I am and what we do.
Exactly. So it's very interesting topic, and also we need it. It's very, very important. I want to take you back, let's say 5, 10, 15 years old. You know, when we go back and then connecting the dots, it's really relevant, and then we can see the pattern or why, or the influence or inspiration, where we get it or how did we get it. So tell me about, can you share, can you remember those days early, just go back those days and then tell me, where did you get your, any incident in your life, or any kind of inspiration or influence, please?
Well, first of all, I think it's normal that we all go through challenges and difficulties in our human development.
Mhm.
Challenges and difficulties help us evolve, but help us learn who we are. And it also teaches us if we can handle the challenges that we're presented with from a not an emotional standpoint, but having emotional intelligence to cope and rise above it and deal with adversity. So in my life, I've had many challenges and difficulties. It's hard to pick just one, but the theme of from, let's call it age 7 to where I am today, the theme that I've come to understand about my journey is that nothing has never come easy for me, which means that that's an easy thing to say, but the truth is nothing's come easy in the sense that academically, I was never that person that learned very quickly. I was never that student that um, could pull a night, the night before and get a 90 if I studied all night. I was always that person that spent 3 weeks to study, but still worked hard and couldn't understand how I finished with a 60.
Mm.
And that traveled with me throughout my life. And the theme of that is that I've always had the work ethic, the drive, the ambition, the focus, the character, the integrity to always put forth the effort. But it's always some of the other things that are external factors that impacted my ability to perform at a high level where I had to do more to compensate for that. So what do I mean by that? Well, when you take an example of someone saying to you, in my example here, that you're not university material or you're not going to be able to go to university because you don't have the credentials to do it, I then process that information as if, for one, that's coming from someone else. Two, I don't have a true reference that that's truth because I've never gone through and seen that outcome for myself. And three, if they're saying that, I'm going to ask the question, why can't I have it? Or why can't I pursue this? So throughout my life, what I've had to do is learn how to process people's assumptions, their perspectives, their judgments about me, and then I'm going to go against the grain to go see if those judgments are true by taking action to see if I can actually do it or not.
Right, right.
Because the whole idea about life is it's easy for someone to make a direct comment to you,
Mm.
a judgment about you, and then you believe it, or you take that information in and you go see if it's true or not. Most people don't want to live where they put themselves out there and be vulnerable to test the market, to test themselves. I've had to go through my life and try, test, do, learn, fail, try, test, learn, do, fail, try, test, learn, do, succeed. There's always been that process, which means for me and for my journey, life is a long game. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not a sprint. Most people are living their life through a sprint mentality, which means I've got to go to school, I've got to get my certification or my degree, I got to get that job, then I got to get that payment or that amount of money that I feel I'm worth so that I can go buy that house, have that car, settle down, have that life, and then what's left. The beautiful thing about life for me is that there is no end until death.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've never had a chance to quote unquote settle in my accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
So an example of that would be I was told in high school that I wouldn't be able to go to university. I eventually went to university and graduated, but I never settled on that. The next step was you're not going to be able to find a career that you're going to be able to do. But then I went ahead and became a teacher without no teaching certification because the company saw value in training me on the job. Then from there, I went into mental health with no background in mental health whatsoever. And yet I stayed in the profession for almost 10 years. Then I went ahead and did business development when people said I couldn't do it. So the whole idea and the whole message here is that we all have these different patterns of our journey that we have to learn to identify that are our own patterns. So if I took time to say that people would say to me, Mark, there's a quicker way to do it, I would say, no, I have to go through it the long way.
Mm.
And the reason why I have to go through it the long way is because I need to build the references, the teachings, and the understandings of learning what that means, so that when I am going through life and explaining it, I'm explaining it from my lens, not from the person who says there's a faster way.
Exactly.
The faster way may work for him or her, but I say, thank you for the information. I'm going to go this way. So throughout my continuum, that's been the pattern that I've recognized, I've accepted, and I've realized that no matter what I'm going to go through, it's going to be harder than the average person because I can handle that.
Right.
Because it's the way how I learn. It's the way how I process life. It's the way how I go through life. And I've accepted that. So I'm not fighting life right now. I'm just flowing with life.
Right.
Most people who are having difficulty today, they're fighting life because they're trying to get to the next thing, or they're desperate and needing urgency because the economy is how it is. They're looking for that big payoff. They're looking for that big deal. And then they're going to be like, that's where I've made it. But then the truth is that doesn't last because you haven't learned the process of, crawling before you can walk, then walking, then jogging, then sprinting, then maintaining. Maintaining is your marathon runner phase, where everybody else is getting tired, but you're just slowly picking up. So I always like to kind of end this kind of description by saying, most people in my life started off really fast and they're there. Yeah. They're in that box, right? But I'm the type of person that's just slowly catching up. And that's how I look at it. I'm just slowly catching up to ensure that, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm developing, but I'm also maintaining my authentic self without losing myself.
So it's a very unique way, and then it's a harder way to learn the life, and then it's a very authentic way. So you don't have to look for anything else or anybody else life. You can look back, and then you can talk about your own life, everything. Pick anything, whatever the experience. It's your own. It's your own. So let me ask you. When you grow up, say I'm a small boy, let's say, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years old, and then a young man, and then going to college or universities, what are the challenges you went through, like as a boy, when you go back and then look at those days, and then how did you overcome?
I mean, there are so many unique challenges that I've gone through that's helped me get to where I'm at today. But, being young, the standard challenge of academic difficulties and challenges with family dynamics, because my parents got divorced when I was 7, little things that kind of spread out over time, you go through. But what it does is that those challenges are like an elastic band where it pulls, but it never snaps. It feels like it's going to snap, but it's not going to snap.
Right.
And, when I look at my life and I take an example, like the school component, I was always an individual that, focused on the fact that when you have people kind of educating you and creating you to be in a box, you don't see that box.
No.
You see what everybody else sees.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole goal of what I went through in a younger age was that they wanted to put me in this box of saying, you're only going to be able to do general labor work, janitorial work, work well with your hands.
Right. Yeah.
They always, like, that was the term they used.
Yeah.
And those never really connected to me. And the reason why is that and at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with those careers. It's not what I wanted, though.
Exactly.
There's a difference, right? I'm speaking from my own individual lens. So when I had kind of teachers placing me in a box of that expectation, I then decided to test that box. And when you are strategically being manipulated to stay in that box, there's either one or two things are going to happen. And I said this to myself. I said, I'm either going to compromise myself and believe that it's true and stay in that box, or I'm going to go and bet on myself. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to bet on myself and have faith, have courage, have optimism, be a person who is persistent and consistent in moving forward. It's not a matter of just being persistent and consistent in life. It's just moving forward. You got to learn that. So when I made that decision to do that for myself at age 7, 8, 9, 10, I understood that most people took a straight line approach to life, but I was the person that ran around the block to get to the same destination that you got to. I just ran around the block. What I was doing during those hardships and those challenging times was developing my endurance so that I can be strong enough to handle and cope with the realities of life as I get older. So I want you to imagine somebody who walks a straight line every day, does the same thing over and over again. They're conditioning their mind, their body for just that time and distance.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I'm doing is when I go around the block, I'm going through ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and the distance is longer. And as that distance becomes longer, my endurance gets stronger. My mind gets stronger. My spirit gets stronger. My value system gets stronger. And then you start to approach life from a perspective of really saying that something is not impossible. You're always looking at what the possibilities are. And so as a young man growing up, I used sports. I used people's judgment. I used society's expectations for my life based on my race and my skin color and my demographics. And I used all the studies that they have out there to say that you're only going to be this or you're only going to do this. And I said, no, I want more than that. So I'm going to challenge your status quo expectations of me, and I'm going to see what I can get out of it. And I'm going to see where I can go. Ultimately, that's kind of been where the young man growing up at 7, 8, 9, 10 with barriers and difficulties was able to strip those barriers and difficulties away in order to focus on my truth, which is I have one life to live, and I am destined to live it in order to maximize my potential, but it's not going to be your, if you want to call it, assembly line mentality and teaching to get me to be something that someone else wants me to be. I'm going to leverage what you give me, but I'm going to become who I want to be within the context of my purpose and my faith in what I have in front of me.
So it's basically what you're saying is, from my understanding, is your vision or the inner calling. It's so big than just than ordinary people. Just you want to go beyond what your potential, and then what you can do, what you can achieve in a life.
And even more, I want to go beyond my comfort zone. I want to be very transparent. A lot of the things that I try to do, most people won't do. So what people say are the hardest things to do are the easy things for me to do. So an example of that would be door knocking when I was a professional fundraiser. I would door knock at people's homes or businesses. The amount of rejections that you get in a day, I mean, if you're not emotionally strong and emotionally intelligent, you're going to process that as if you're the problem. And then you're going to question and say, these people are whatever. But you're not realizing that you're fighting something that's based on your ego, because your ego and pride got hurt. I've never once wanted to put my ego and pride in front of my ambition. What I want to put in front of my ambition is faith, courage, purpose, consistent, persistent behaviors that allow me to learn, grow, and develop. And in essence, I also normalize failures, disappointments, rejections, and the things that more or less hurt people and their feelings. I process it as fuel to push me the next day.
It's true. Very valid point, man. It's really nice to hear. Let's talk about of course, even though you didn't have the father figure, or but somehow in your life somewhere, if one person is disappearing or is not there anymore, but somebody else will replace that Let's talk about the relationship, or how did you manage, and then how did you overcome those days, the father and fatherhood, the life experiences.
Well, my dad's still in my life today, so he's like my number one, fan of encouragement as well. Growing up in the time that I grew up in with my dad, he was never someone, and he's not someone right now who puts pressure on me to do or to become something for for him to gloat about.
Mm.
So you know how some people would drive around with the sticker saying, "My son or daughter's in at the University of McMaster."
Yeah.
My dad's not like that. It's more of he has already put the foundation of work ethic, principles, values, understanding your history so that you can make history in order for me to go out into the world and get what I need to get and make my place in the world. So my dad was always like an encourager. I remember one time I was like, I think I was 10, and I got cut from a sports team.
Oh.
And it was on my birthday. And being a young black boy growing up playing hockey, and that sometimes in life people would rather look at what the perception of who you are on the outside is versus what your value is from the inside out.
Right.
And we felt we were more kind of cut based on the skin color component. And I remember we were driving home, and he says to me, he goes, "Let me ask you a question." And I said, he goes, "What's your favorite car?" And I said, "A Lamborghini." He goes, "How many people do you know own one or have one?"
Right.
And I said, "Well, I don't know anybody, but I've only seen it in magazines."
Right.
And he's like, "What does that tell you?" And I said, "Well, it kind of says like, some people have money," because I was young, right? So I didn't really know what to say, right? Yeah. So he's like, he goes, "I want you to understand this one lesson, and I don't want you to ever forget it." He said, "I want you to treat yourself like a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Very few can afford it. Yeah. Very few can have one. But when people see it, they can't argue about it, right? Because the car speaks for itself, right?" I said, it doesn't mean I want you to be arrogant. Yeah. And it doesn't mean I want you to be a person with an ego. Yeah. But I want you to learn to balance humility with grace and faith to live your life in order for you to maximize your potential. Right. And that kind of teaching has stuck with me to where I am now. It hasn't changed. It's just evolved and it's expanded.
That's the biggest lesson, man. That's the biggest lesson.
Yeah, and when you have, like, my dad, like, he's never going to, he will always say to people, "I'm not worried about Mark." Right. Because he knows, like, I'm going to eventually be like a cat. When a cat falls off of a table, right, they fall on their feet. He knows I'm going to fall on my feet at some point. Right. He's never seen me become so despondent or disappointed that I don't get back up again. Right. He's always seen me get back into the fight and be able to be like, "Okay, next round, what are we going to do?" Right. Next round. Right?
So the reason, maybe some of you guys, whoever is watching, and then some of you guys think, why we are talking about fatherhood or the relationship between father and son. It's a pretty much most of us, or pretty much most of the times that we never had a chance to share or talk about our fathers or whoever is a role model in our life. So it's a kind of like a living and then healing, I would say, because when you go back and then remember those memories or those days, you can actually see him as a different perspective, and then when you grow up, become a father or a family man, it is a totally different perspective you have. So these are the things I just want to bring it out. So one more question on the same thing. So let's say when you were a young boy and then seeing these things, and then the father or the man adult they go through, but when you grow up and then when you become a family man and being a father, how do you do the transition, or You know, how do you see those things when you become a father?
Well, I'm blessed to say I have a son, and he's great, and my wife is great. Um, uh, the thing about my approach to my own son
Mm-hmm.
is similar to what he's exposed to.
Right,
So he doesn't just have the physical references of me, but
right,
he has the physical references of my dad who instilled that in me.
right,
So what we see is a generational pattern
right.
of
Yes.
basic components of work ethic,
Mm-hmm.
respect, pride, dignity,
Mm-hmm.
integrity, all these little basic things, empathy,
Right,
that people don't really put too much emphasis on,
right,
we've instilled in him.
right.
So by instilling those type of value systems and principles in him, even in grade 1 and grade 2,
Mm.
his teachers would say, you know, he's so empathetic, like he
Right.
cares so much. Those are the qualities that people learn when they're older.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
I don't want that for him.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm expecting is the example that he sees through me. So my wife will tease me sometimes and be like, you know, he's watching, and it's like a reminder
Yeah.
that he's watching.
Yeah.
So my thing of saying that to you and sharing that and being transparent
Mm.
is that I don't feel that I'm always on because I'm being myself.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Some parents would feel that they have to put on an image
Mm.
or a front for their kids or for the perception of others to see that they're good parents.
Right.
Who I am in my house right at this moment is the same person I am outside of my house.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
If anything, the only difference that changes
Mm-hmm.
is my ability to engage with him whenever I'm going to deal with him for a challenge or a difficulty, or you want to call it reprimanding.
Yeah.
It's never done in a public setting,
Mm.
ever. Never, ever done. It's always done one-on-one.
Right. Right.
So if I'm outside somewhere and something happened in a store, I
Mm.
wait till I go in the car.
Right.
If it's something where he's out at the front yard and something happens, I bring him inside.
Mm.
That principle of having one-on-one
Mm.
is going to be vital in his development, because I look at it from a perspective of parenting today is not parenting of the 1970s.
No.
Parenting of the 1960s it's changed immensely.
Oh yeah.
And evolution has put us in a perspective that parents who are leaders today are not just friends, they're everything, but they have to balance those things with patience.
Yeah.
And they also have to balance raising a child with knowing who they are and having self-awareness. So I know about self-awareness because that's what I do every day and talk about every day.
Right.
But I instill self-awareness in my own family and within my son. So things like academics,
Mm.
I'll say, I want you to understand that learning this aspect of school is not a race, even though it might feel like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I need you to do is I need you to understand that how you learn is through repetition. So that means if you learn a new concept on Monday,
Yeah.
the goal is to repeat that new concept between Monday and Friday, even if it's not in the classroom, but at home.
Right.
So then you become what you learn. The
Exactly.
reason why I use that as an example is because that is a part of my self-awareness program where I help people audit their strengths, challenges, and abilities
Mm.
in order for them to maximize their potential.
Right.
So now my son doesn't walk into school feeling, well, I'm nervous and I don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking into school saying, I'm nervous because I just need to adjust to a new group of people.
Right.
That's like that for anybody. Imagine how you feel when you go to your first day on the job. It's the same thing. You're not questioning your ability. You're looking at the people that you're trying to learn and know about. Building relationship, right? So the whole idea there is to really lay out a way for him where I am the example of patience. I am the example of self-awareness. And then I'm always staying in my lane, running my own race.
Mm.
And he's learning how to do that as he grows up.
Right.
I'm not expecting him to learn that all right now.
Mm.
I'm just expecting him to learn the basics of it.
That's it. That's
so
it.
that he can, so when he's out with his peer group,
Mm-hmm.
he can see the gaps. Oh, I see that Tommy does this with his parents, and that's kind of disrespectful, Daddy, because I know that this doesn't work here. When I start seeing that he can put the puzzle together that way,
Yeah.
then he's on the right track.
Right.
But he's not a PhD student.
No.
He is still 7 years old.
Exactly.
It doesn't change anything. So I let him be a kid.
Yeah.
But I let him be a kid within the confines of himself, not what others want him to be, or what biologically or environmentally they say you're supposed to be. That doesn't work.
Right. So let's talk about you have been working or helping a lot of youths, in the past. Let's talk about those ones. What were the similar or common challenges or pattern you see, or what did you come across with any incident or any situations? Can you share any of those? And then how did you help them? And how did they overcome actually from that situation? Let's talk about those ones.
I've worked with youth in many different capacities. So as I said, in the capacities that I've worked with them, it's been either teaching and counseling in schools, mental health therapy. I worked with youth. And I've done other youth involvement volunteering work. And what I've learned about the youth of any generation is that everybody has the same needs, but away from the same needs, with generations, the evolution of things has changed. So the needs of feeling safe, loved, supported, encouraged, having a place within themselves where they can feel some form of peace. Those are the things that are important,
right,
in any child. It doesn't matter what generation you're in. What I've learned to do, and what I have learned to really evolve with, is mastering the art of human connection and human communication, which means that when if I'm working with a client that is a young person, I'm looking to A, establish trust, B, provide a safe place for that person to feel safe, right? And C, letting them know that they're the experts of themselves. I am not the expert. I let myself be vulnerable to those things because I want to empower the person to know that they're in control, not me. Right? So with young people, what I've learned to do is to break down those components in the beginning to establish a trustworthy relationship in order for them to feel that they know that someone is there to not just snuggle them when they need it, but can also push them.
Right.
I call it my snuggle push theory, where I'm their security blanket with emphasizing the importance of family or whoever else is in their life to support them. We work together for your good.
Right.
And then we put action plans together to get you to where you want to go. If it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't matter, because progress is measured in inches, not feet. So I help young people break down the process by letting them know that we're going to work within the confines of your space, the confines of your lane, and we're going to go at a pace that works for you. So if you're not ready to go to school, what are you ready to do? What else can we do? If you're not ready to get a job, not a problem. Can we volunteer? Can we look at maybe doing once a week, going into the space and talking, or doing a course that can help you, that's for free, that can help guide you in that profession? I'm always about looking at the options versus dictating. You see, young people do not want to be, if you will, instructed on what to do. They want to be inspired in what to do.
Exactly.
The way you inspire them is breaking down the barriers of what society's expectations and what their parents' expectations are, and getting them to see and feel what their own expectations are. If their own expectations doesn't align with what their parents or society's is, then they're just living their life based on what people are telling them. But when they understand their own expectations and they understand their own process, that means they're starting to become elite, to become unique enough to bring value to the world, because they're understanding that themselves as an entity, they're building, they're learning about all these great things about themselves, right? That if you followed a cookie cutter mentality, of go to school, finish, go to university, college, finish, get a job, finish, settle down, marry, children, finish, buy your house, condo, finish, travel, finish, live life, finish, retire, finish, die, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of that cookie cutter approach.
Yeah.
But if you follow like what I call an ebb and flow, like water with life, the ebb and flow is basically that if you're like water, water can be anything. Right. So if I pour water into a cup, it's a cup of water.
Yeah.
If I put water into a cup or in a pot, it's a pot of water.
Yeah.
But if we see water in the lake, it's a body of water.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're not limiting yourself. So when I started to learn how to view life like being, or view individual self-awareness as water, it's easier for me to communicate that with people at their own level. Right. A person who has ADHD may have the insight on who they are and what's going on, but they don't have the insight or maybe capabilities to function in their own space, like within themselves, right? That to me is crucial to human development.
Before we go into the next questions, I want to ask you, how was that like the openness, or like how did you, as a growing man and a boy, or any youth, or even you and me, we actually come across the age, and then as a man, we're looking at a different perspective, like take any nationality or any ethnic group, but in a whole nutshell, as a man. How did you see, even though you had a mix of gender, like male and female, but I'm specifically talking about the boys. How did you find, or what did you learn about the openness? Like, was it easy for them, or like is it very hard, or what was the challenges that you had in terms of having an open conversation? Because boys, we never had an open conversation though.
Well, let's be very clear. It's being vulnerable to most people is a sign of weakness versus a strength. So to convey that message to someone at the onset is not something that's really possible to do. The reason why I say that is because people today want to build relationships with a perspective of being more transactional than more transformational.
Right. Yep.
So what do I mean by that? It appears as if we are almost like, it's not a bad thing, but you know how you go to a doctor's appointment and you explain to the doctor what your problem is? Right. He or she will explain, and then they'll say, okay, here's a prescription, try this out, let me know in 2 weeks. To a certain extent, certain parts of human evolution has turned to that same mentality. Right. Where we want to build enough relationship with someone to get something quickly, and then discard them at the end when we've used them, right? The truth of the matter is human beings are what they are, human beings. Yep. They need to be in a position where people are willing to invest time in them to demonstrate that they care, to demonstrate that they'll listen, in order to then do something to help. Right. Because you can only gain trust through being empathetic and allowing yourself to be humble enough in your own skin to let that person come to you when they're ready. So the process of building relationships with boys, young boys, or anyone to that matter, to effect, you got to be ready, willing, and able to stay patient in the process and know that not everybody's the same. Right. No. You can't use a theory that you know from a schooling or a testing because this person's showing this behavior to define them. What you want to do is you want to unpack what they know about their journey and how they got there, if they have the insight and capabilities of doing that. Right. Right. So you have to be able to respect people enough to know that the process and the storyline is their story. You're just a part of being the pen. Right. Right. Yeah. They're the ones who are holding it, but you're a part of help guiding them with the pen. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So it's a process. It's a relationship. It's a way of, making a connection based on heart and mind versus what can you give me? Or how can I make this quick pill result come out for you so you feel better for the next 8 hours, but then feel like crap for the next 10.
Exactly.
You know, like you have to be ready, willing, and able to distinguish that.
Right, right. So let's talk about the, you know, when you have worked with or come across a lot of situations, especially on the mental health. See the news, or we hear a lot of times. It doesn't matter any ethnic groups. Like the suicidal rate is, when you look at the ratio, it's men. It's over 80 or 87% or somewhere. So how do you see that, or what's the challenge, or what's the real thing going on in those people, you know, minds?
Well, suicide is something that is an option for people who are in a dark place. But suicide is triggered by a significant loss or change in someone's life that they can't manage or cope with, and they feel one of their only ways out is having suicidal thoughts or acting on those thoughts to a certain degree. There's always that kind of gray line of how they get there, right? The truth of the matter is that when you look at something like suicide now, the pressures of life and expectations, family expectations, a lot of external factors play a role on someone's mind and heart in being in a dark place where they can only see suicide being an only option.
Right.
And when you remember how I said earlier, when you spend time kind of building relationship and talking to people, I want you to imagine a suicide safer community is based on people using empathy to the point that they can talk about someone's dark place, feel comfortable about how they got to that dark place, and then look at some light options. Imagine if we took that time, but that time can't be done in 5 minutes.
No.
That time could take an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, I don't know. But I want you to be really looking at it from without lenses and realize, okay, what if I did come across someone who wants to kill themselves? And they say, I do want to kill myself in a couple hours. And I come back and I say, you know what, John, thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of courage to share that. You know, can you tell me how, like, why you wanted that or how you got to this point? Because I do want to understand, not that you're feeling this way. I want to understand how you got here.
Exactly.
You know, and you want to be able to empathize, connect, show that you care by listening, observing, letting them talk to get that piece out.
Right.
And when you're able to strip away some of those potential challenges of what got into that dark place, the next step is, well, what is the life in your life? Like, if there was one thing for you to live for, what would it be? You don't know if it could be a guitar, it could be a child, it could be a pet, it could be a person, it could be a job, it could be anything that's significant to them.
Right. Even academic levels or academic things. Yeah.
We don't know, but everybody's reason for living could be tied to one thing. It doesn't have to be 5 things.
No.
And the goal is, when you find out what that one thing is, then you want to start working towards helping that person get to that one place. Which is what I was saying earlier about how you kind of break things down where you help people within their own space and their own lane. Everybody's different. But we feel that we just don't have the time to spend when we do have the time to spend, if we really care.
Right. Do you have anything, if you don't mind, like, do you have any situation you come across, any young boys or, you know, not the extreme cases, you know, like they took their own life, but they actually came to that stage, you know what, Mark, I'm in that situation, or my mind is you know, I'm so confused, so and so, you know, you don't need to actually name or anything here, but I just want to get a general idea, you know, how did they overcome?
I haven't actually, I don't want to say I've been exposed to it like that, but what I can say is that I've looked at suicide intervention trainings in the past and learned about the art of how this kind of, how you communicate to people in pain.
Right.
And the thing about suicide and it being an option is that you're not going to be a person who can rescue everybody to live.
No.
And the truth of the matter is that understanding about why a person is in that dark place is what I call the unpacking of that dark place.
Right.
And you have to be either ready, willing, and able to open up that door with them. Because if you don't know what you just don't know, because you could be that trusting person that they want to express that to. And if you shut the door on them, they will never be vulnerable again. So it's being able to recognize that you've built a relationship with someone who's willing to talk to you about their most deepest thoughts on either suicide or whatever they're dealing with. And then it is important to know that you're not the only person that needs to be in the process of helping. Because what we need to do with the individual who is dealing with these thoughts is to let them know we need to have some type of cohesiveness with a team approach to help you, because I want you to win.
Exactly.
I want you to win. So that cohesiveness could be, do you have a parent or someone that you trust? A friend, parent, do you have a treatment team of any kind that you go to or have gone to in the past? Exploring things that they might have. And if they don't have, then we could bring that to them with the expertise. Right. Using external resources that are professionals that can help him with these or her with these dark thoughts, i.e., do they need to be referred to a community support service provider in addition to having medical support? What you're ultimately doing is when you get to that point of trying to create a plan of action to help them, you're trying to get external resources to help.
Exactly.
Because it can't be just you.
No.
You're not the miracle worker.
No.
So even though you're starting the process, you want to add other links in the chain to help this individual cope with their reality.
Of course, yeah.
So when you're looking at this whole idea of suicide, and if I've come across it, I mean, I've probably had people say it to me, but I've been able to unpack what was there, hence using that same approach of unpacking, listening, empathizing, and then coming up with some potential strategies to help them, to connect them. Right. Because once they were able to be connected to the things that they agreed to, then we started working towards quote unquote recovery or improving one's life.
Exactly. I want to ask you one more question though. Let's talk about the process, or how do you help your program with the self-awareness program, the one that's your own method or own program. Let's talk about that. How do you actually help them the process?
So my self-awareness program is based upon customizing workshops to impact my clients. So if my clients connect with me and they say, Mark, I'm looking for us to learn a bit more about, having a positive mental attitude in our place of work, then I'm going to create my self-awareness content workshop to match the need. So self-awareness comes down to a few concepts. I work on attitude. I call it my 3 A's: attitude, approach, and actions. That's one component. Work culture component. So working from being able to work with a team from a perspective of the individual. How does him or her bring value to the team? Through self-awareness, right? I work with self-awareness from a mental health perspective of looking at a number of different criteria that are focused on what you need. So things like gratitude, faith, humility, and that's a part of a component that I focus on in order for the individual to bring value. The whole goal of what self-awareness does, and what I really hit home on with, is I need to always make sure that even though I'm talking to a group of 200 people, that I'm talking to the individuals, because I want each individual to take a component of self-awareness to audit themselves for a personal benefit or a professional benefit in order for them to see an improvement in their life. So, and a great example of that was about a couple weeks ago, I did something for a client where I was a part of their retreat to do a talk on self-awareness. And I did a follow-up phone call about 3 weeks after, and their team is still using the concepts, even in their professional growth development as well as their personal growth development. So it's working for them at home and it's working for them at work. So that's kind of the impact that the self-awareness model has, because in the era that we're in currently with this COVID-19, people are more stuck in their own heads and stuck in themselves that they don't know where to go.
No,
they don't know how to move. They don't know how to be because they don't know who they are. They're not working from the framework of who they are. They're working from the framework of what was, and what was is not coming back necessarily, but what is what we're going towards. And we have to be ready, willing, and able to stay flexible within ourselves to maneuver and bring value to the world that we're moving into. Self-awareness helps you do that.
Right. Thank you, Mark. Actually, that's a wonderful, for sharing, and a lot of things that you shared. The reason to bring you is to, to listen to your experiences, the life journey you went through, not only on the personal side, also the professional side too. So it's so incredible to listen to your every stage of your life. So it's not really easy to talk about it or share with others though. Sometimes we okay to share, but not everybody willing to share. So that's the bottom line is here. So every Sundays we have open up from 10 to 10:30 actually. So this is where we bring individuals. It doesn't matter either male or female. There's no gender limitations or age limitations. Any nationality or any ethnic background, you can come and share your life experiences. So somebody else can change their mindset. They change their mind thinking patterns. So it will help somehow. So what are the so many things Mark was seeing, and then so many life experience or challenges he shared, but at least one or two or a couple of them or whatever you aligned or you resonate with that, you can think back and then see where you can connect, because there are so many challenges. It doesn't matter if it's small or big or any life challenges or any life situations. You can go back and then pick anything, Also, the self-awareness program is very crucial. So that's why we are losing so many lives, especially nowadays. Because when we save lives, it's not we are saving only lives. It's so many things we are saving, their hope, the potential. So we never know who can save or who can make a big difference in the community or in others' lives. So we are saving more than just a life. So thank you, Mark, once again, and then for being here, for your time and everything. I also enjoyed listening your speeches too. So guys, again, friends, whenever you want to share or, come and log in on YouTube, Voice of Men 360. We are already there, subscribe, and also on Facebook, Voice of Men 360. So come and join, and whenever you want to listen or you want to share, please do so. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Mark, once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.